Hello, I'm Adam,
And I'm Adrian.
and welcome to Cast from the Crypt. Adrian, what are we covering today?
We're covering rubber.
Yes, 2000. I saw online 2010, but I watched this on HBO Max, and it says 2011, so one of those years.
Yeah, I think it's because it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2010, but then was, out for DVD, home video, and streaming 2011. But I could be mistaken.
Okay.
This movie, I don't know if you know this, but this movie has actually been um, talked about pretty consistently in the last, just over a decade. I first heard about this movie, I think, when it was maybe just a year old, still kind of in its infancy in pop culture. And the premise was all the buzz, like Robert the Killer Tire. Because if you haven't seen this movie, or if you're completely unaware of its existence, it is about a tire named Robert who can kill people with telekinetic powers.
I did not know his name was Robert.
Yes, it is. That's actually a fact from the trailer.
Okay. Yeah, they never say
Yeah,
it in
yeah,
the
but
movie.
um but yeah, this movie, I remember hearing about this movie like in middle school, early high school. I don't know about you.
No, I've not really heard of it. You told me the premise, Killer Tire, and we went to watch it, and this movie was radically not what I expected.
Well, me neither. Me neither. I I was actually very I was thrown for a loop when I saw the opening 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I said, "Oh my God, we're watching an art film. Like we're literally watching an art film." I thought this was going to be a stupid slasher, but instead we got a pretentious uh, pseudo Grimehouse uh,
Great.
movie. Um, I mean, do you disagree?
No, I knew, I guess, that like sure, it's gonna be at least cheek and tongue. They know that they're making a movie about a killer tire, so surely it can't be that serious. I was expecting, just on that basic premise, immediately, 80s B movie that's really bad.
Me too.
But then I saw 2011 and I was like, okay, well, that's strange. Let's get into it anyway. And yeah, not at all what I expected.
Yeah, well, I knew that it wasn't made in the 80s, but I was expecting an homage perhaps to 80s slashers. The film opens with this like 10-minute, maybe 15-minute cold open that really just slaps you in the face, comes out of nowhere. We open on a desert. I think it's the Mojave, but I have no real way of proving that. Just an expansive desert, and we start getting these like slow panning shots, excuse me, of these like black chairs, the kind that you find at IKEA. And there's several of them just kind of strewn about the desert. Then all of a sudden, we see a car pull up. This nerdy man with a tie and white collar shirt comes out holding several pairs of binoculars. And out of the trunk of that car climbs a man in a sheriff's outfit. And his name is Chad. We learn that later. Um, but he gives this long monologue. And I have issues with this monologue that I'll go into in a moment. But the opening question that the sheriff asks while looking directly into the camera at the audience, he says, "Why was the alien in ET brown?" No reason. I mean, that's verbatim what he says. And then he proceeds to point out several instances in several very popular movies. He names Chainsaw Massacre. He names the Pianist by Polanski. I mean,
Yeah.
he names several movies that are all recognizable and household names. And he talks about how things that are central to the films happen for literally no reason. Now, I could tell that the writer that wrote that monologue thought they were killing that. Like, they really thought, oh yeah, this is deep. No reason. But that's not true. Like, in
Yeah.
all of those instances, save for the E.T. puppet being brown, he talks about, like, why do we never see the bad guys in Texas Chainsaw Massacre use the restroom or wash their hands? No reason. No, you don't, because those moments were omitted from the film. They weren't the important part of the film. This is a stupid monologue. And the whole point of the monologue is that they justify how their plot in this movie that we're about to watch happens for no reason. Basically telling the audience, don't assign meaning to this. This happens for no reason. Enjoy the ride. And then there's a pan out, and you see that there's an audience within the movie. And these are characters that actually watch the events of what's going on in Rubber throughout the film. It's very odd. And already in the first 10 minutes, maybe one of the most pretentious things I've seen in 2022.
I think that's a great rundown of the beginning. I chortled a little because we get this really, I don't know, visually interesting at least, opening all these chairs, a car, that's hitting these chairs. It's just bizarre and striking to see this desert wasteland. The pan stops at all these chairs, and we see all these chairs just in the desert, and it's just really kind of like jarring. It was strange to look at initially, and then from there it took that strangeness, I feel like, and ran with it.
Yeah, you do get used to it, but in the beginning, the opening 25 to 30 minutes where there's a bunch of lens flares and close-up shots and slow pans to reveal X, Y, and Z, it's super odd because you just don't see it coming.
Yeah, no, I everything this movie's about I did not see coming. But
yeah,
now this opening monologue to me set the tone for the rest of the movie, or at least set my viewing experience. No reason, sure. So you could watch this movie and scrutinize it, try to analyze it. It's very abstract, very artsy, like we've said. And you could try to find meaning in it, or you could do like this guy says and just take everything at face value. No reason. Why is it like this? I don't know. Does this mean anything? I don't know. No reason. So, sure.
Here's my beef with this. Is when you make a big stink of this no reason thing. I believe he calls no reason, like at the end of his monologue, he says, we employ this artistic choice known as no reason, or something
He
like
says,
to that effect.
I think he says something along the lines of like, this is an homage to the No Reason film.
Yeah, but he labels it like as an artistic choice, or like I forget the exact words. But whenever you do this and you open up the film saying, these things happen for no reason, doing so also, by the way, just completely inaccurately, and like just an incredibly simple way of looking at movies. We the audience member know that you do want the audience to read into it, right? I mean, you're now assigning a level of importance to this film by opening with a monologue like that.
Well, don't you think they know that their no reason arguments are wrong?
I don't know. I think that, like I said, I think Quintin Dupieux, or who's the director and also one of the screenwriters, I think he probably really thought he killed that. Like, I think he left his laptop and was like, "Show." That was crazy.
Well, I don't know. I think stuff like why don't they use the bathroom in Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, of course there's a reason. There's an obvious reason. Surely he knows that, but he's included it in the monologue anyway. I think, I don't know, this movie takes an almost cynical approach to itself. Like, clearly there is a reason in all these instances that there is no reason. And he says this is a no reason film. But if there really were reasons for these examples he had, then surely there are reasons for the choices in this film as well. But it's almost like he goes out the gate saying, like, forget it, who cares? Don't worry about it, just watch the movie. And for the rest of the film, it feels like he's cynical towards the audience. Like, they won't care. There's a kid at the beginning when they're all watching, the quote-unquote audience is watching it with the binoculars, that he says it's boring already. And, later on, a character talks about how he hates the ending. It's clearly this director, like, has some beef with general audiences, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's some symbolism there at the end.
Yeah, it feels like he doesn't care if this movie is watched. And I think that most artsy films are definitely not done for the viewership.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was made to be made.
Yeah.
Or perhaps for no reason. So I've kind of like already ragged on the opening. I did not hate this movie. I just found the beginning to be really pretentious and jarring. There are things in this movie that I really did enjoy, and I want to talk about those briefly. I really like the soundtrack, which was done by, I'm going to butcher his name, but a man named Gaspard Ogue, and also the director himself, who makes music under a stage name.
Of course,
with
does.
A synthesizer, like that's his style. And of course, he uses a synthesizer. Yeah, I thought the same thing. But and he's got his own record label and everything. But I did enjoy the soundtrack quite a bit. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think we can sit around all day and argue if we like the abstract concepts that may or may not exist in this silly art film. But the one thing I will say that is good in this movie is the sound design. And a lot of the shots are well done. I really like, it feels like they got a really nice camera and they wanted to use it. And a lot of the shots are interesting. Like these chairs in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. When we first see the tire, it's in this dump. It's in the middle of the desert, just kind of debris and trash is scattered around, half buried. And I personally just really like, I just think that's visually interesting. Just like the waste of a city, of civilization, of humans in some weird wilderness. And you wonder why it's there.
No, I agree that this movie is well shot. And again, I think it's really well scored. I think that this guy is probably a pretty talented director. I've never seen anything else that he's done. My primary beef with this whole film lies in the fourth wall breaking not being quite as clever as they seem to think it is. But that's my primary issue here. Now, here's what I will say again, to be complimentary. Way to subvert expectations, right? Like this movie, you and I were expecting a stupid, B movie about a tire that kills people. And here we are sitting and talking about it, or excuse me, with much more detail than we probably anticipated already. And I think all that is to its credit. This movie has been reviewed a lot. Because I think that sort of speaks to what I said before. I think this premise is incredibly interesting. Killer tire with psychokinetic powers. Who isn't interested in that?
They follow this tire loosely with a typical horror movie slasher plot, maybe. The tire slowly kills more and more. It begins small, just kills a rabbit, then a magpie, then some random character. It almost gets our final girl. So it does have a final girl too. It's some girl driving down the highway. The tire uses its psychic powers to stop her car, and it's about to kill her, but just in the nick of time, a big truck runs over the tire, and she gets to drive away. The tire gets revenge, kills that guy, and then is slowly killing its way towards this girl. It's like obsessed with this girl. It's this like typical, slasher plot. It's at least, if loose, at least following this formula. But the main point of the movie is not this story. It's very quickly and very loosely following this, so it can do this meandering audience conversation.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Like, there are remnants of a slasher plot here, but you know that they are obviously, again, subverting expectations for us, the viewer. And they do that largely by introducing this whole cast of characters that exists in the world of the movie, and they're watching from a distance with binoculars. And in this way, it's very absurdist, right? Because you know that this sprawling expanse of desert that this movie takes place in, there's no way that these folks from one point of the desert can watch all of these events take place, right? So very much you have to suspend your disbelief with these characters as you watch them. And there is like an entire subplot within this subplot where the nerdy guy with the suit and tie, who his name is Accountant, I believe, is the character's credited name. He, for some reason, decides to poison a bunch of these people with a turkey. This is something that is not discussed, but I did find an interview with the director named Quintin Dupieux. Again, just in case you want to look this guy up, where he speaks a little bit to that moment where 95% of the characters that we've been following for a good amount of the movie are poisoned for seemingly no reason. He says something to the effect, and I wish I had the exact quote, but he says something to the effect like, this could represent how Hollywood is poisoning its viewers' minds, but it could also mean nothing. And it's like, bro, we know you want it. No reason. We know you want this to be deep. Like, we know you do. Why not just say it means nothing?
That's a good summation, I think. Wanting this movie to be deep.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
They really do. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
This poison, first of all, this poison turkey, that's exactly what happened to me on Thanksgiving. Let me tell you. Exactly
really?
Like this. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Sorry. But in a way, this is an inciting incident of this other plot. And it's where the movie takes a turn. The sheriff character who reappears, he's the same one that gave this monologue in the beginning, starts talking about how, like, oh, it's happened. Everybody stop making the movie. And he's telling all these characters who are still actively in the movie. They're immersed in their roles, at least, while this man is existing in the fourth wall breaking plane that he is. He's telling everybody to stop with the movie. We don't have to do this anymore. The audience isn't watching. Come to find out, there's this old Clint Eastwood looking man in a wheelchair who knew they were going to try to poison him, so he didn't eat the turkey. And they are forced to continue the movie because there is one audience member still watching.
To give you an idea about what this guy looks like, first of all, his name is Dwight Wings Hauser.
That's a great
He goes by the name Wings. And his breakout role was in a movie called Tough Guys Don't Dance. So just close your eyes and think.
He's literally a tough guy.
What might this man look like?
He can't dance because he's in a wheelchair. So
that's true. He cannot. But he is like the lone viewer because he refused to eat the turkey. And there's a turn in this subplot where after we've discovered that he's still there, the accountant, who seems to be working for some entity, we sound ridiculous for the record, The accountant seems to be working for some entity that wants to get rid of the audience members. He ends up eating the food himself, the poison food that they're offering the audience members himself, I guess, in order to sell the man in the wheelchair, which, by the way, is his actual credited name in the script. We're not just calling him Man in Wheelchair. He is credited as Man in Wheelchair. He seemingly trying to sell this poisoned food to the man. He eats it himself, and the accountant ends up dying.
I like this scene because of how just like everybody else just kind of, they got it, they got poisoned, they were in a little bit of agony and they died, but this man dies in such a like visceral, not visceral, but it takes a long time, and he's really acting his heart out. Like it really feels like he's dying of liquid organs. And it goes on for a long time. And
Yeah,
it's
he's
almost,
like, I don't want to.
yeah, it's almost comedic. This old man in a wheelchair with his binoculars looking off in the distance, and next to him this guy is like dying. His organs are failing.
Yeah, which you're right is just absolutely hilarious. So he eats the poison food that was initially for the man in the wheelchair, and dies. And then, after that, finally, we think that the audience storyline has ceased. They turn back to the slasher storyline, and there is a full-on manhunt, or I guess a tire hunt, taking place in the town. And I was actually, despite all of my scoffing and all of my eye rolling, I was with the movie until around this point.
Really?
It
What
wasn't
made you
until,
give up?
I think what made me give up was the purposeful anticlimax at the end.
Oh, that was
Which
my favorite part, I think.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So I guess we could talk a little bit about it and then talk about why we either liked it or didn't.
Okay, please.
Do you want to talk about the events?
Well, this sheriff is like kind of disgruntled because he has to continue the movie. For the rest of the movie, he's kind of like half-hearted in everything he does, because he is this one character that exists with knowledge of the fourth wall. And they do this goofy plot where they dress up a mannequin like this woman the tire's obsessed with. They put it in front of the tire's motel room, which most of this movie does take place around a motel. And then it's like this sting operation. They have the girl in a truck. They're watching the tire, and this mannequin has a microphone in it, and she's... The idea is they're tempting the tire to blow up this mannequin's head, and when that happens, there's dynamite strapped to it that will go off. It's very Acme. But
Yeah. I just quickly want to point out, this would not work. I know. Why even get into it? Because seemingly, right, the tire is able to like explode, it make people explode from the inside out. He makes their brains explode, essentially. There's no actual like gunpowder explosion. Why would that set off the TNT?
I don't even know why you're asking these questions.
But you're
the
right.
minutia is so not important to this man's story. I don't.
You're right.
Well, I think part of that reason is they know that too. This whole let's kill the tire ending plot is just the half-assed thought of this sheriff character that's, not really a sheriff. He exists outside the story mostly. He's just he knows it doesn't make sense. He doesn't care. He's just trying to end the movie, I think, and that's why it doesn't matter if it really explodes or not. But before they finish this, the man in the wheelchair appears at the back of the truck. He bangs on the door, and they open the door to the van, and he says, like, this is taking too long. This is a really bad ending. You got to speed it up at least. He wants to see the action. And, is our man Quintin making commentary about audiences wanting to, being hyper violent, just wanting action, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. Whatever, Quintin. But, This is the part where the anticlimactic ending happens, as you've said. The sheriff gets like kind of frustrated. The mannequin thing doesn't end up working. He says, "You want the movie to end? Fine." He grabs a shotgun, he runs in the hotel room, you hear a shot, and he comes out with a destroyed tire and he throws it at the feet of the guy. And he's like, "All right, here you go, the movie's over." And he leaves. You hated this, right? This was your least
Yes.
favorite part. What? Tell me about that.
Well, not that specifically. So yeah, and the man in the wheelchair, of course, is displeased with this ending. He says, "What? That's it? That's it? It's over?" And the cop walks away. Well, after the cop walks away and a few moments pass, a tricycle slowly rolls out of the house where the tire was just killed. And the viewer calls out to the sheriff, "Wait, it's not over. It's not over. Come back." And he tells the tricycle, "I'm just watching. You do your thing over there. Don't come any closer to me." But of course, the tricycle blows him up in epic fashion. This could mean a variety of things. I think what the director, and I hate that I'm just eating out of his hands, speculating, because I know that's what he wants.
He's just getting his rocks off knowing we're speculating.
I know. But I think it's clear, right? Audiences won't be happy with any ending you give them. I mean, in summation, I think that's the point. The fact that you can't please audience members as a creative, as a director. Now, I just thought this was the lamest thing I've ever seen. I did kind of like the fact that, well, I shouldn't say later on, about 5 minutes after this, we think that Robert has reincarnated into a tricycle, but we start to see like tires rise and crawl out of all sorts of areas of the desert. And then a tire army descends upon Hollywood. That was kind of charming and cheeky and made me giggle. But again, it's like, how on the nose can you be? But then again, maybe he's right. Maybe there is just no pleasing me. Maybe I'm the problem.
Well, this is what I mean by it's a very cynical approach to the audience. This movie's rife with that. But I guess that's part of the point. I love this ending. Not for any other reason than just it made me laugh. Him just coming out with the destroyed tire like, all right, it's over. I thought it was funny. And then the old man going, "Wait, come back. He's been reincarnated as a tricycle." I liked it. I just thought it was funny. That's it. That's all.
I think I got one genuine laugh in the movie, and I want to talk about it because I laughed really hard. The one moment in that ending that actually gave me a pretty good belly laugh was during the stakeout. Tied to the mannequin, they have a speaker, and our final girl is speaking into a microphone to try to get Robert out, really trying to get him to like self-sabotage, as Adam described previously. There's a bit where she's reading the script and it's progressively getting more like dominatrix-esque and like toward the tire, and she's like, "I can't say this. Who wrote this?" And there was some good actual like physical comedy there with him kind of Chad, the sheriff, kind of slouching and be like, "That doesn't matter." That bit got me. I liked it. But that was it. That was the only diamond in this rough for me. The ending, I mean.
I laughed a little at there's that scene where they're eating, when they are introduced to this poison turkey and all the audience members eat the turkey. They don't eat the turkey. They like tear it apart. Like they all like starved dogs. They're like tearing apart this turkey. Like any piece they can grab, they just tear it off and stick it in their mouth.
Which most definitely is another metaphor. Because the only person that recognizes that they're eating like animals is the man in wheelchair who lives at the until the end.
Or true film fanatic, I guess. Well, this scene made me laugh because I was imagining just... Could you imagine being cast in this movie and you're like just tearing apart a turkey with a group of other people? I thought, how bizarre must it be to be one of these actors?
God, and like you just want to make it so bad. All you want is to
Yeah.
have your big break. But here you are in Quentin Dupieux's circle jerk film, having to
Having to,
gnaw a turkey down to the bone.
yeah, you're elbow deep in a turkey.
Oh man. In this critique of like Hollywood culture, you find yourself trying to make it in Hollywood by rolling around in turkey grease.
Yeah, that's why, and I laughed at that idea.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
I've increasingly, in preparation for these episodes, been watching these movies the morning before we record. So like getting up at 7:30 or 8, making some coffee and watching. And I don't know, you just rub the crust out your eyes and you're just sipping a coffee, trying to catch some energy to get ready for the day. And thus far, I think this is the most like disturbed I've been this early in the morning while watching a movie. The turkey scene was really, really odd. Um, and another one that made me giggle just like in the darkness this morning was the tire would like kill a scorpion or kill a bird or whatever and start rolling away, and just like the happy little soundtrack in the back while he's rolling. It's just such a great way to start my morning.
Well, I'm glad. You're off to a great start today.
So that's what I mean, right? I did not hate this film, genuinely. I just tend to, as someone that was a theater major, that saw way too much of this kind of stuff, like this, again, pseudo intellectual writing. It's just like kind of nauseating after a while, and you see right through it.
Yeah, these sort of films. I don't know. It's a lot of work for possibly very little reward. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and respect, right? Like, I think anybody that commits to making an hour and a half feature length film is somebody I respect. This is a labor of love. Filmmaking is incredibly strenuous and it's a very raw art form. Like, you put a lot of yourself out there as a creative, and I totally get that. And I don't want to sound like I am disrespecting this man for trying. I mean, there's a lot worse out there than Rubber. There's a lot of pretentious films out there. I just personally don't really connect with this type of movie. And I wanted a B movie about a tire that killed people by blowing their brains up. And I got that for about 30 minutes of an hour and a half long movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't mind this other approach it's taken too, but it meanders. It does
It does.
meander. It had to fill an hour and 30 minutes because any less than that is like a little short for a film. But I don't know. There's a lot here that maybe you don't even care about. Like that kid said, maybe you think it's already boring. One thing that I think I have problems, I guess. It just really disturbed me. Like more so than anything else. The sound of this rubber tire going over gravel like really disturbed me. I was not having it.
Really?
I hated it. Yeah. I mean, I know it's just rubber on gravel. I don't know why I hated it that much, but I was not here for the
Wow.
ASMR.
That's kind of shocking. It's something I didn't even notice.
It's a very this is what I mean by had good sound design. Like it was
Yes,
very
that it did.
pronounced. It was very real. It was very present in these scenes, but in this tire cannot emote that well. It's a tire, but in the way it sort of turns and moves, that kind of gives it a some character, I guess. This sound it makes in the gravel, I guess, also is a part of its barely existing character. But I don't know, the ASMR of it. Oof.
I can't really speak to the gravel sound because, again, I didn't notice it, but I can agree with you that I think the tire's performance could have been a little more well-rounded.
Many puns intended.
Yes.
A few puns.
I made myself laugh with that one. That's what's important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and the director made himself proud. Made himself.
That's true.
Think deep on a movie.
Maybe we're not so different after all. Yeah. So I found a review just on Wikipedia of this movie that made me giggle, and I want to know if you think it's harsh or if it's or excuse me, if it resonates. Here you go. So Variety, which we all know is a very reputable source, they gave it a really negative review. And the quote that was listed here on Wikipedia is, "It's neither scary, funny, nor anywhere near as clever as it seems to think it is. Pick offers odds few reasons to want to see it beyond its one joke premise."
It's not nearly as clever as it think it is.
And we totally picked this movie because it's about a killer tire.
Yeah. Well, I've heard about it before. All I've heard about it is that it's about a killer tire. That is absolutely not the focus of the movie. That is not the main takeaway, but that's all you've heard about it. Because it's their one joke. I thought this was going to be like a sequel to Christine. Like Christine was destroyed, but this one tire survived, and now the tire's haunted. But no, it's not. That's not what happens. I think this is going to be our shortest episode.
That's okay. I think this deserves a shorter review.
Yeah, I think this movie was either going to be a short review or a incredibly over lengthy review about something that maybe does not deserve an over lengthy review.
Yeah, and maybe in respect to the stylings of Rubber, it's best that we don't get too deep.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason.
Yeah, there is no reason. My button on this is going to be this. It's on HBO Max. It does have an interesting one joke premise, but if you've got an hour and a half, like, I didn't find myself incredibly bored. I didn't find myself wishing it would end. I didn't find myself upset with the runtime. So if you've got the time and you're interested, and you've got an HBO Max subscription, I would never tell you to pay for this movie. Then like take the time to watch it, I guess. Otherwise, you could probably leave this alone.
Yeah. It's just so alienating to, at the beginning of the movie, be told this movie has no point, there's no reason, and then have the rest of the movie clearly try to be as symbolic and artsy as possible.
Yeah. 5 out of 10. Not enough tire killing.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to see the tire kill someone by like running them over.
So did I.
Not just psychic kills. I wanted other kinds of kills.
Dude, that's exactly what I wanted. But though I did like the exploding effects, I also like the fact that the tire's movement was done practically. I don't know if you know this, but like essentially they had a motor in the middle that would move it with like a remote control.
It was probably like that vehicle General Grievous drives.
Yeah. Well, they just basically use CGI to remove the motor from the middle of the tire. It's pretty well done. You can't really tell. So props there. Props to the score. Props for trying. Give it a watch if you wanna. Yeah. And honestly, if you don't, you won't lose sleep. That's my take personally, Adam.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thank you for for experiencing this with me.
Hey, it was an honor.
Thank you.
And a privilege, my friend.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.